two young guys here in Silicon Valley, and then they sold it to Google for over $1 billion. This was many years ago, and Google had owned YouTube for a long time as it continued to grow into the dominant worldwide video service. And then Alphabet became the parent company. So now Google and YouTube are its two divisions and subsidiaries, with YouTube continuing to have its own headquarters in San Bruno. It's always been there. All right, we're looking at the scene over YouTube headquarters from Sky 7. We're going to push in on one of the entrances where we see police investigators going up. We've also seen employees or people who were inside that building coming out, coming down those same stairs. San Bruno police have tweeted police activity at 901 Cherry Avenue. Please stay out of the area. So while they have not tweeted confirming an active shooter, they're responding as if there were one, and we've seen many such situations play out. This is a response consistent with an active shooter situation, and they have tweeted that there is police activity at 901 Cherry, and they're asking people to stay out of the area. We're looking at video of the scene, and on your right, we're also showing you the map of YouTube headquarters in San Bruno. As you know, this is just north of San Mateo, north of Millbrae, near the SFO area, which is not too far away, but we're not seeing any reports of flights at SFO or operations there being affected. So far, it is limited to that immediate area, but police mean business. They are asking people to stay away as police are there with their guns drawn. Residents have also been asked to stay away, and right now, it is very tense. It is very tense. There are reports that shots may have been fired at YouTube's headquarters in San Bruno. We don't know anything about any possible injuries. We have not seen anyone taken out in stretchers or anything like that, so we can't tell you about injuries, but we can tell you that police are asking people to stay out of the area. Producers, if we get a chance, we can pull up the San Bruno police tweet and let folks see what we're talking about with San Bruno police telling people to stay out of the area. We are also seeing tweets from people who, one of the YouTube producers, who's pretty well known, saying that he heard shots and saw people running while he's at his desk inside YouTube. And he's barricaded inside a room with coworkers. Okay, now you're looking at Sky 7, checking out a lot of the people who came out of the building, who have made it to safety, who are located on the outer edges of the campus with police around them. And you can see some of the 1,700 people who work in the YouTube building there in San Bruno who have made it out safely. And this is continuing. For those of you who are just joining us, there's an active shooter situation reported at the YouTube campus in San Bruno. Joining me now on the set is I-Team reporter Dan Noyes. Dan, I know you've been looking into this as well, and as we try to get you mic'd up, get you to tell us some of what you found.
Kristen, I've got a law enforcement source, a pretty good law enforcement source, who's telling me that the shooter is a white adult female with a dark top and a headscarf. There have been multiple injured, shots to the chest, no fatalities yet. This is now from a law enforcement source. There was some concern. There is the largest infantry battalion of Marines just around the corner at Sneath and El Camino. It's the 23rd Marines. We should be seeing some snipers on the roof. It's looking from my law enforcement source that they may have her at this point. But again, a trusted law enforcement source is telling me that the shooter is a white adult female with a dark top and a headscarf, and that there may be injured with shots to the chest. No word of fatalities at this point.
And right now, Dan, as you were telling us that brand new information about the possible shooter coming from one of your law enforcement sources, we saw police patting down each and every one of the people who have exited the building. And, you know, obviously, even if they have one person and thinks she may be the one. Obviously, they want to be extra vigilant, continuing to pat down everyone, make sure there isn't a possible accomplice or a possible other person who has a weapon on them as they exit.
No, and we've seen these scenes far too often with people with their hands up in the air, you know, just making sure that they were not somehow involved in what happened. And you know, Kristen, you have to really think about this as well, that if this is true, and I do believe this law enforcement source, but if this is true, that it is a female gun person, if you will, this really does break the mold of our typical shooters here in the U.S.
And Dan, also, we just got that tweet pulled up. We want to show our viewers because San Bruno police are putting out the word for folks to stay away from that area. So here's their tweet from minutes ago. We are responding to an active shooter. Please stay away from Cherry Avenue and Bay Hill Drive. And this is the latest, and they are confirming that there's an active shooter, or at least there was. We hope it was, but here's another tweet of theirs. Police activity at 901 Cherry Avenue. Please stay out of the area. That one from earlier. But you say they do have a white adult female, at least your source says. That person, they have apprehended, or they have her?
Yeah, the exact word from my source is they may have her. So clearly this is just happening right now. It's underway. We're really just we're getting this information just second by second. It is coming in. This is very much an active situation. But yes, I mean, we do have word that they may have her. Again, a white female with a dark top and headscarf. Apparently some injuries with shots to the chest. No word yet of anyone who has passed away from those wounds.
And Dan, what your source is telling you is consistent with what I'm just now seeing from a YouTube product manager, Vadim Lavrusik, who has been live tweeting. He just tweeted, safe, got evacuated, outside now. Gotcha. So hopefully they are in fact safe. And we are seeing a lot more people coming out of the building, and that is hopefully consistent with, you know, maybe somebody was captured and maybe police are able to now escort people out and feel that they're not a threat going in and getting people out.
Absolutely, absolutely. But clearly a huge campus with many people to evacuate, and so you have to wonder if there are still people in there, if there is still an active danger, but there clearly are people who are getting out, who are being processed, who are being checked, and who are now safe outside of that building.
Yeah, and again, that building, for those of you unfamiliar with the area, and Sky Map 7 on Sky 7 is doing a good job showing us where it is. It is right off of 280 and 380 at that interchange. And Cherry Avenue is the location, but you can see 380 is moving along just fine, unaffected, and it appears 280 is as well. I've been checking traffic reports. That does not seem to be affected at this time. But yeah, Dan, there are a lot of other important places in that area with a lot of people. Walmart, e-commerce corporation, they have an office. Kaiser Permanente, San Bruno medical offices. There's a Courtyard by Marriott, San Francisco Airport Hotel, and a Wells Fargo bank. So this is not in the boondocks. This is an area where a lot of people are either working, living, or trafficking in today, moving about. So until we can be sure that the situation is cleared, definitely the advice that police are offering to stay out is a good idea and the safe thing to do.
No, absolutely, Kristen. And you know that we are really working our sources at this point. We are listening to the scanners of law enforcement on the scene. We're really trying to pull information from as many sources as possible.
Yeah, and right now we're seeing a lot of tweets from people, you know, who say they work inside the YouTube building, that they are now getting out. I just saw a tweet from the Associated Press breaking that the city manager of San Bruno is saying multiple 911 calls came in, and this all happened about a half hour ago, reporting the shooting at YouTube headquarters. And since then, we've been live on the air as we follow the convergence of police flocking to that headquarters, which, as you mentioned,
they're trying to get a handle on exactly what it is. We've seen ambulances going in. They've been leaving, but no indication that they necessarily are treating anybody, that they're going to hospitals. There have been some reports that there may be some injured. A lot of different chatter coming in on police radios. We know the people who were inside the building. They say that they heard what they thought was gunfire. They took shelter under desks. They locked themselves in different rooms, trying to stay away from what was going on. Everything that we're all taught on a daily basis to do now. But actual victims, there have been some reports that blood might have been seen, but nobody reporting that they have seen them. Then again, this has escalated in the last couple of minutes to the possibility that there may be victims. We're trying to decipher all of that right now.
ABC's Alex Stone as we continue to follow developments in San Bruno, California, where police said they are responding to an active shooter, possible shots fired inside YouTube headquarters. I want to bring in ABC News law enforcement contributor Steve Gomez, formerly of the FBI. Steve, what do you think at this stage?
Well, at this stage, it's probably about gathering as much information as possible on the situation, containing the location, making sure that if there is an active shooter or shooters, that nobody's going to be able to escape, and then trying to get inside there as fast as possible to try to deal with the active shooter to preserve as much life as you can inside. I mean, it's just like any school shooting, like any other situation. You want to get law enforcement officers in there to confront the situation and try to prevent any further loss of life or injuries.
Steve, we have seen groups of people that have been massed outside the headquarters of YouTube there in San Bruno, California, officers patting them down as they come outside of the building. This is all the kind of protocol that we have seen these days in all of these situations.
Absolutely, and they're looking at everybody who's coming out of the building. They want to try to clear these people as fast as possible because some of these people may have some valuable intelligence that'll help them deal with the actual situation. So they got to clear them. They got to make sure that they are not a suspect. Take them to an area where they are interviewing people, identifying them, of course, and doing the investigation, while at the same time they're trying to secure the situation, make sure that they have contained the suspect or suspects, and then they, from there, take deliberate action, whether it's, insert a team to try to bring that person, to justice, try to take them down. If there has to be a firefight because there are, reasons for that, then they have to deal with that. If there's a hostage situation, they want to try to figure out, if they can talk to the person. So they've got many factors at play, especially right now since there's a lot of unknown to the situation.
Steve Gomez, formerly of the FBI and now an ABC News law enforcement contributor. I'm Erin Katursky, and you're listening to live coverage from ABC News. In San Bruno, California, the police have said they're responding to what they call an active shooter at the headquarters of YouTube. Ali Flores works across the street. Ali, I understand you're currently locked down as you're seeing the police response.
Yes, that's correct. We've been on lockdown for, I'd say, at least a half hour now.
Did you hear anything, see anything?
No, so we were, at least I personally was first alerted to the situation when we started hearing a ton of sirens rushing down the street, and then we're pretty close to the windows, so we, noticed what was going on outside and started to pay attention, and then that's when the first sort of news report started let us know what was happening. Are
you a YouTube employee?
No, I'm not. I work for Walmart.com right across the street.
Okay, so you're right across the street there, and you, as you look out the window, what do you see? Right now,
it's just covered with police vehicles, fire trucks, even we can hear helicopters overhead. The response has been pretty massive. The entire street and surrounding area all shut down. And a little while ago, we saw people being cleared out of the building, but nothing other than that.
Ali, when this all happened, as you say, half hour, 40 minutes ago, was there any thought in your head that it might turn out to be what it is?
No, honestly, we were right near a freeway, so I heard all of the sirens and assumed it was a car crash or something like that. But honestly, I mean, in today's world, you have to kind of understand that this is a current reality. So the second, someone floated the possibility, everyone just immediately reacted.
Well, Ali, stay well, and please continue to keep us up to date. Don't go far. Ali Flores works right across the street from YouTube headquarters in San Bruno, California, where police have swarmed the headquarters after responding to what they're calling an active shooter. It is not immediately clear whether there are victims here, whether shots were actually fired. None of that has been confirmed, but San Bruno police now say they are responding to an active shooter at the headquarters of YouTube. The authorities have urged the public to stay away. We can see the police vehicles blocking the streets. Every once in a while, crowds of people from inside the building come out with their hands in the air. They are immediately searched by police before being sent on their way. And now we understand that the ATF is responding. The FBI is standing by to respond, we're told, with San Bruno Police, the lead agency. Let's get back to ABC's Alex Stone, who's following these developments. What are you hearing now, Alex?
Well, a number of different agencies responding, as you mentioned there, Erin. The ATF, the FBI says it is monitoring right now. We know a number of different police departments, the Highway Patrol, a lot of resources moving in, armored vehicles that have moved in as well. The CHP, the California Highway Patrol, taking part in, we understand that a lot of people have been walking on freeways that are nearby this YouTube building. It's quite a large YouTube building. As people have been evacuating, as they've been trying to get away, they've been going up on those freeways. The Highway Patrol trying to keep them off, keep them down. Still heavily armed police. We see some coming out right now. They've got long guns. They don't seem to be in any real hurry, but they have helmets on. They've got the guns across their chests that they're definitely working on, it appears, trying to clear that building.
Yeah, Alex, I wanted to ask you about the posture of the first responders that you're seeing. They don't seem to be terribly panicked at this stage, but more of them keep coming.
Yeah, they do continue to come in, and we understand, talking to San Mateo County Sheriff's Office, that they say that they got an all-agency call, that the call came from San Bruno Police. San Bruno is a fairly small city south of South San Francisco, which is South San Francisco is a different city than San Francisco. It's near SFO, the airport, and San Bruno Police putting out the all call for every agency that had somebody they could send to go ahead and send them. So it seems, at least initially, they believe that they had an active situation. If they still do, that's not clear. Seems that they don't even necessarily know, as they have continued to go in the building and continued to search it. But they're trying to get a handle on that as of a couple of minutes ago, and I'm going to check back in here in a second.
Yep.
San Mateo County saying they just didn't know what was happening inside the building.
All right, Alex, go check with your sources there in California as we continue to follow developments in San Bruno, where police said they are responding to an active shooter at the campus of YouTube. The entire campus seems to have been blocked off by police now. There are crowds of first responders standing in what looks like a parking lot with ever more officers arriving by the minute. Every now and again, groups of people from inside the headquarters buildings come outside with their hands in the air, immediately searched by law enforcement. I want to turn to Steve Gomez, formerly of the FBI and now an ABC News consultant on these law enforcement matters. Steve, does the presence of all of these agencies, the police, the sheriff's department, the ATF, and the FBI now standing by, does that tell us anything?
Well, first, it tells us that these law enforcement agencies are very responsive. When they get a call for assistance from a fellow agency, they respond. And so that's really good to see. They're probably trying to work out what the plan is moving forward. Based on the fact that they are congregating, it seems like they must have the building contained. If there is still an active shooter or shooters or suspects that are in the building, it sounds, just based on that kind of description, they probably have it contained. So now it's a matter of them developing the plan on how they're going to proceed. And part of that plan includes extracting, victims or just innocent civilians out of the area, get them out of the way so they don't get injured. And again, they're conducting as fast of an investigation as they can to try to determine what's happened, how many suspects, what does the suspect or suspects look like, what kind of weaponry, and so on. Have there been injuries, deaths already? They're going to be trying to get to the bottom of that so then they can figure out what they're dealing with. That will help with the enforcement and the action plan that they're going to develop as they position law enforcement officers to go in there and try to neutralize the situation.
Steve Gomez, formerly of the FBI and now an ABC News law enforcement consultant. The fire department, the police department in San Bruno, the San Mateo County Sheriff's Department have all responded with federal agencies standing by after a YouTube campus, multiple calls, the city says, for an active shooter or some kind of shooting inside the building. It's not immediately clear the nature of this, the circumstances, who the suspect might be. but the authorities have swarmed that campus and they've told everybody to stay clear. Our affiliate in San Francisco, KGO, is reporting that the suspect is a white adult female who may or may not be in custody, but that is who the authorities may be looking for or who may be they may be targeting, but it is not clear or confirmed by the authorities there in San Bruno, California, if in fact this person is in custody and if in fact this is over. All San Bruno police have said is that they are responding to what they're calling an active shooter at the headquarters of YouTube. I'm Erin Katersky. You're listening to live coverage from ABC News. The authorities in San Bruno, California, are responding to what they're calling an active shooter situation. It happened at the YouTube campus within the last hour or so. Employees initially were put on lockdown. Many more are coming out with their hands in the air and being searched by the police as they exit the campus. The public has been told to stay away. The authorities are surrounding that campus now. There's a large presence of vehicles from first responders, police and fire, the sheriff's department, and a number of those officers who are not immediately searching the building or dealing with the employees seem to be standing around waiting for some kind of instruction. And we await a briefing from the authorities on the ground to see what we might yet learn. It is not clear whether the shooter is in custody. Our affiliate in San Francisco, KGO, says that the shooter may well be in custody, but we have not been able to independently confirm. The authorities have laid out the triage mats, red and green and yellow, the color-coded, to help with the injured. But nobody so far has been brought to the parking lot area where those mats have been laid out. Following along with us is Steve Gomez, our law enforcement consultant, formerly of the FBI. Steve, what do you think based on the very little that we know now?
Well, a couple of interesting points that you just described. Potential female shooter. That'll be interesting to see more about the description on that female shooter and the type of weaponry. Triage mats, that's never a good sign. That usually indicates that there are a number of injuries, potentially a massive amount of injuries when they start laying out the triage mats, because they're looking to give medical attention and to try to deal with the victims and the injuries as fast as possible. And they have to basically create a makeshift emergency room as close as they can get it to the victims. So I'm sure fire and medical attention personnel are deploying there as fast as possible. So now the question is, if it is a female shooter, does she have some assistance in this situation? And who is this female shooter? Is she an employee there? Is this workplace violence? Could this be something else? These are part of the early parts of the investigation that they're going to be looking at.
Steve Gomez, formerly of the FBI and now an ABC News consultant, and will wait to confirm whether the shooter is in fact female and whether the shooter is in fact in custody. Our affiliate KGO has reported some of those details, but we are not yet ready to confirm those ourselves here at ABC News as we wait to see what develops in San Bruno, California, where YouTube headquarters is now surrounded by first responders who were there because of multiple 911 calls for an active shooter. We have been monitoring the Twitter feeds of some of those YouTube employees. Some said that they heard shots or a ruckus that sounded a bit like an earthquake. One employee said he saw blood and then said he was told to get out of the building and that it was all over. So it's really unclear. And at a campus as big as YouTube's, you could imagine, not all experiences are shared. So we wait to find out from the authorities what has gone on inside YouTube headquarters within the last hour or so. The YouTube headquarters in San Bruno is adjacent to a freeway. We know that some traffic had stopped, but and they want to try and minimize public access to that area, which is now surrounded by emergency vehicles. We heard a moment ago from YouTube's parent company, Google, Alphabet. They say they're coordinating with the authorities and will provide official information from Google and YouTube as it becomes available. But so far, there is no reportable information coming from Google, so we wait to hear. Within the last moments, we did hear from Stanford Healthcare saying that they are treating 4 to 5 patients from the shooting at YouTube headquarters. 4 to 5 patients from the YouTube headquarters at Stanford Healthcare. No word on their conditions. That would indicate that there are, in fact, some victims here, whether they were actual gunshot victims or whether they were injured in some other fashion and being treated from Stanford Healthcare. That remains to be seen. Do we have anything on the nothing on the ground as of yet? But we do have an eyewitness. Let's hear that now.
So you just pulled in. So there's a mall on the other side, because I haven't been here before. So there's a mall on the other side. So you just pulled in.
Yep.
And then you saw a woman.
The lady came into Carl's Jr. She had been shot in the foot, and then that's right when the police started pulling up. She was shot in the foot in Carl's Jr. And they took her away in an ambulance. No, I didn't get that on.
Yeah, you're right.
I got to look back, actually. I might have a little on video, but not of her, actually. But when I was inside of Carl's Jr. And they took her right away. They took another person out of the building, I think, and they put her in an ambulance also. Or I don't know if it's a lady. They took somebody else out of the ambulance.
But the one that you saw, Carl's Jr.
She hopped into Carl's Jr. with a bullet in her foot. Yeah.
That is bizarre.
Yeah. And right before that, the guy was talking over. He heard about 15 shots fired, and then he said it stopped, and like 15 more shots. That was right as the police were getting there. So I don't know if it was police or somebody else, but that's what he told me over there.
Dude, this is insane. Especially since last week we just had the veterans home.
Yeah.
And stand by. Was your name Steve?
Yeah.
Lindsay, we can do it right here.
All right, an eyewitness talking there at the scene to a reporter on the ground outside YouTube headquarters. The eyewitness saying that there were apparently some 15 shots that he heard, but it is unclear how many shots have been fired, precisely where in the YouTube campus, or how many have been affected, although one of the local hospitals has said that they are treating 4 to 5 patients now from the YouTube campus. So those patients are apparently being taken to a number of different area hospitals, and we know that 4 to 5 of them are being treated at Stanford Healthcare after this apparent shooting at YouTube headquarters in San Bruno, California. ABC's Alex Stone back with us. Can we go to Alex?
Yeah, I got you, Erin.
All right. What are you hearing now? Because we're starting to hear of apparent victims here, Alex, but still nothing confirmed about what this is.
Yeah, and it's pretty clear at this point that it is an active shooter. We know that there are victims who have gone to Stanford Health Center, which is a pretty short drive away, maybe a 10-minute drive away, and to Zuckerberg General, which is the big San Francisco hospital. It is the trauma center. That's where the more severe cases would go. So we know that some have gone to Stanford, 4 to 5 patients being treated there, and then we have an unknown number, according to Zuckerberg San Francisco General Hospital, that have gone there to that trauma center as well. So we know at this point there are some patients. We don't know the severity of their injuries. We don't know anybody dead at this point. And police say they're trying to figure that out as well. As YouTube employees have been coming out, they have been they've been searched by police on the ground. They have come out one by one, been told to come out of an area where they're being held. They're getting patted down as they come out. Police making sure that there is not another suspect in there, somebody who could have been involved, trying to look like an employee, hiding what they might have on them. They're searching their backpacks, searching their clothes, making sure that it is a secure scene.
ABC's Alex Stone following developments with us from San Bruno, California, where police said they were responding to an active shooter at the headquarters of YouTube, which is now surrounded by emergency vehicles. Public access has been limited. We have seen the authorities going up close towards some of the buildings, perhaps to search them. We have also seen employees coming out with their hands in the air to be searched by the authorities as they leave the campus. Eyewitnesses have reported a number of different things when it comes to what they heard and what they saw. Let's hear from another one of those eyewitnesses speaking to a reporter at the scene.
Right on. All right. So that's kind of what you saw, huh? Crazy stuff?
Yeah. Yeah.
Anything like it you ever seen?
No.
Yeah.
And like I said, another guy that I was talking to over there, he works the city of San Bruno. He heard, or I'm sorry, it was another guy. He's heard shots fired. He said there was like 15 shots. Sounded like someone stopped, and then 15 more shots. That was right before I got there, and he said he wasn't sure if that was police, but I don't know if they were there yet. So he had heard some shots fired too.
Pretty crazy stuff.
Yeah, real crazy.
Yeah. Steve, thank you so much. Yeah, you said you got some video or something?
I do.
Is there anything you could share, you could like airdrop to me?
All right, there's an eyewitness talking about the crazy stuff that he says he heard and saw outside the YouTube headquarters in San Bruno, California. Steve Gomez, formerly of the FBI and now an ABC News consultant. We don't have a whole lot to go on here, but we do know now that 4 or 5 people are being treated at least one area hospital.
Yes, and rest assured, they have a command post set up in that area. It looks like they got a triage center set up as well, and that command post, as all the agencies that have responded, and they're working hard, I can imagine, to try to get as much information about this situation from every place. These witnesses that we're hearing from, they're hearing from them as well. They're trying to determine what part of the campus, what part of the building, how many shots fired, what did the shots look like, were there any other sounds, did anybody say anything, whoever the suspect or suspects are, did they make any statements, comments, what have you. And ultimately, they're going to have to get to the witnesses that were the eyewitnesses that saw the actual shooter or shooters and heard the actual comments or statements, because that's going to tell a lot to law enforcement as to what happened, why did it happen, getting the motive, and so on. And the investigation takes it from there.
Steve Gomez, formerly of the FBI and now an ABC News consultant. I'm Erin Katursky. You're listening to live coverage from ABC News. Apparently shots fired inside the YouTube headquarters campus in San Bruno, California. That's what police say they're responding to, an active shooter, although it is not clear whether that shooting is still active or how many victims there might be. One area hospital says there were between 4 and 5 victims that came in for treatment, though the hospital did not say whether they were hit by gunfire. Across the street from the YouTube campus is Matthew Efting, who works there just across the street. Matthew, what are you seeing now?
Actually, right now I can't see anything. Building security has pulled us away from the windows and drawn all the shades. Probably
for the best safety precautions. Mm-hmm. Can you tell me the circumstances of why they made that decision or when?
It's still an active situation. The street is filled with police, fire, and I did identify a SWAT vehicle on site.
Did you hear anything? Or this would be about an hour or so ago.
About an hour ago, I didn't hear anything. I had a coworker, I say, he thought he heard shots fired. He was also indoors. And I said, let's wait for a moment to see if we hear any sirens. And immediately we heard sirens, and the streets were just flooded with officers.
Not the usual Tuesday afternoon in your workplace.
No, of course not. I had coworkers who were at lunch across the street at the local grocery store and eateries. They heard shots fired. They couldn't identify where it was coming from. But just a little while ago, we did a formal head count, make sure everybody who was in the building today is accounted for. And so far, so good.
All right, well, that's certainly good news. Matthew, thank you. Keep us posted and do stay well, stay safe. Matthew Efting works across the street from the YouTube campus in San Bruno, California. And as a precaution, his security staff has kept him away from the windows and drawn the shades after a shooting, or at least reports of what police are calling an active shooter at YouTube headquarters. And the authorities are still trying to sort out what exactly has gone on. Steve Dempsey is another eyewitness there at the scene.
Well, I don't know the exact time. It was probably about 45 minutes to an hour ago. I came off the freeway. I came up to come into Bay Hill Shopping Center, and I saw a big commotion, so I pulled in, and a lady had come out of the YouTube building, actually limped or came into Carl's Jr., had a gunshot in her foot. That's right about, there were barely any police there at the time, and then all of a sudden, next, from all directions, police, not slowly, but started coming, and you knew something was serious because people started crowding around. Police started coming from every direction, every town, getting out with like their SWAT gear, and then the SWAT showed up and just kept going from there.
And so you were kind of hanging around to see what was going on. What else did you see?
Yeah, I saw a lot of the people who work in the YouTube building. The police went up to the front. They started waving people out. They all had their hands in the air because they didn't know who was who. They brought them across the street, around the corner, and at the same time this was going on, the helicopter started showing up, but more SWAT showed up, and then a bunch of waves of police went in that building. I'm saying there's got to be 200 police in that building, and I've never seen them come out yet. I've been over there watching the whole time. There's a lot of police in that building.
Wow.
So
and you've been right up close to it.
I've been here right since when the police first got here.
And it's that building we're looking at right here in the back?
No. You can't see it from here. It's kitty corner to this building or across from that building. If you guys go around this way, you might get a better shot at it.
Okay, cool. Right on. All right. So that's kind of what you saw, huh? Crazy stuff?
Yeah.
Anything like it you ever seen?
No. Yeah. And like I said, another guy that I was talking to over there, he works city of San Bruno. He heard, it was another guy, he's heard shots fired. He said there was like 15 shots, sounded like someone stopped, and then 15 more shots. That was right before I got there, and he said he wasn't sure if that was police, but I don't know if they were there yet, so he had heard some shots fired too.
Okay, a reporter with an eyewitness on scene in San Bruno, California, where police said they were responding to an active shooter at the campus of YouTube. The number of victims has not been made official, but one area hospital said it is treating between 4 and 5 patients. Unclear whether they are victims of gunshot wounds or whether they were hurt some other way. Let's get a quick update from ABC's Alex Stone, who's following these details with us. Alex.
And still, Erin, a number of what we believe to be YouTube employees coming out of the building. It is a large building. As they come out, they've got their hands up. They're being searched one by one. Rescuers from the fire department and paramedic side, they've got triage tarps out, the green, yellow, red. You put the lowest priority, the least injured on the green, moderate injuries on the yellow, most severely injured on the red. They continue to do some of that triaging. The police stance doesn't seem to be what it was even a short time ago. Now many have taken off their helmets. They're walking around very calmly around the building. Crime scene tape is going up right now. It would appear that this is more of a static scene, but still police aren't saying what they've got. But it does appear that the things have calmed down considerably in the last couple of minutes.
ABC's Alex Stone, as we follow developments out of San Bruno, California, where police said they were responding to reports of an active shooter. As Alex notes, the posture of the authorities who have responded to that scene appears to have relaxed. Let's turn to Steve Gomez, formerly of the FBI, now an ABC News consultant on law enforcement matters. They won't fully relax, Steve, until they go through that building.
Exactly. And, we don't want to get ahead of ourselves. We don't want to say that this may be over. But, that relaxed atmosphere or, when they start taking their helmets off, that usually indicates that they have secured the location to some extent. Now, does that mean that they've secured to where if there is a suspect or suspects in the building, they've either neutralized them, taken them into custody, or maybe they have them in a corner somewhere and they know exactly where that is, so they can kind of now start attending to the victims and the investigation. Those are some of the things that we still have to find out about. There's been no press conference thus far. You almost hope that law enforcement is waiting to ensure that they have all of the facts as to what has gone on thus far before they come out and make some type of statement. So we'll have to wait and see.
Yeah, sure will. Steve Gomez, formerly of the FBI and now an ABC News consultant, as we continue to monitor developments out of San Bruno, California. It's where police said they were responding to an active shooter at the headquarters of YouTube. In the last little while, though, it appears the posture of the authorities has relaxed just a bit, and it's not clear whether a suspect or suspects is in custody or what. But we have seen a couple of perhaps telltale signs of what's gone on. One, there is an outdoor patio area with tables and umbrellas where there are a number of overturned chairs, and we don't know whether that's where this may have happened or whether people were getting up in a hurry and perhaps running. We have seen groups of apparent employees with their hands in the air being led away from the buildings and then being searched by police as they leave the campus. The YouTube campus in San Bruno is shut down, as are a number of the surrounding streets, and that is...
This is an ABC News special report. Now reporting George Stephanopoulos.
Good afternoon. We're coming on the air right now because police are responding to an active shooter situation at the YouTube headquarters in San Bruno, California. That's about 12 miles south of San Francisco. Large campus there for YouTube, about 1,700 employees. It unfolded about an hour ago. Police have responded. At least 2 local hospitals now reporting that they are treating some injured from the shooter. No reports yet on whether the shooter has been neutralized, although local television reporting that the shooter is a female shooter. I want to go to our senior justice correspondent, Pierre Thomas. Pierre, we also know that federal officials are monitoring the situation.
That's right, George. The FBI is monitoring the situation. The ATF has put out a notice that they are en route going to try to provide support to local police. And, George, obviously this is a situation that we see unfolding over and over again in the country. Weeks after that terrible shooting at Parkland, Florida, at the high school, and after we had a similar incident in a Maryland school active shooter situation. So this continues to be something that law enforcement is deeply concerned about, George.
There you see those YouTube employees being let out. That has also become a familiar sight. Our chief business correspondent, Rebecca Jarvis, covers YouTube, and I know you've been in touch with several employees.
Yes, George, and I've heard from employees inside the building who say that they heard multiple gunshots and that many employees ran to safety. Coworkers at YouTube ran to safety. They barricaded themselves up in various rooms inside that building and then awaited police evacuations. Many of those employees now have been evacuated and say they are safe, but they are very shaken up, George, by this incident.
As you can imagine, they would be. We've also seen some reports that they were told not to use their phones. As I said, at least 2 local hospitals, San Francisco General and Stanford Healthcare, reported they are treating some patients from the shooting. We don't know how severe that is. And as I said, we also have some reports from local stations that the shooter was a woman, conflicting reports on whether that shooter is neutralized, whether this was a suicide attack, as we see the police there on the scene from the local sheriff's department. I want to bring in our FBI analyst, Brad Garrett, former FBI special agent. Brad, one unusual aspect of this, if it is indeed true, a female shooter.
Yes, you and I have not talked about female shooters for years. So that's unique, George. Also, you always have to look at the trail in these cases, the trail being other people connected to her at the shooting, helping her get to the shooting site, etc., any explosives, any issues with her car. So law enforcement, presuming it's only her, sort of have to do this cleanup to make sure it's safe.
Okay, Brad Garrett, thanks very much. As we said, about an hour ago, an active shooting situation began to unfold at YouTube headquarters in San Bruno, California. Police responding right now. Local hospitals reporting some injured. We do not know yet what the condition of the shooter is, what the condition of the patients but we have reports from some local television that the shooter may be a woman. We'll have a full wrap-up tonight on World News Tonight with David Muir. We'll stay on it all day long on abcnews.com. I'm George Stephanopoulos in New York.
Has been a special report from ABC News.
And I'm Lindsay Davis. We are continuing our network coverage at this time of that active shooter at YouTube's headquarters in San Bruno, California, where we've been looking at, there you see the campus, the headquarters there, where we have 1,700 employees that work inside YouTube. We've been watching the video, and you can see the aerial here from the helicopter overhead. We've been watching employees departing and police patting them down and processing them, making sure that they are not what they're believing to be is the one active shooter. Perhaps we're hearing that it was a white female, but you can see those images right there of people being patted down, making sure that they don't have a weapon as they depart. So we've been seeing those images, as well as police starting to enter into the headquarters, into the main building there. We're going to also go to Brad Garrett, former special agent, FBI special agent, as soon as we have him available. Brad, I believe that you are available. Kind of walk us through what is happening right now as far as law enforcement and the tactics that are being used.
Well, Lindsay, the real key is she a lone shooter? It looks like she is, but we don't really know that. We don't know motivation, we don't know number of weapons, but you always have to follow the trail of the shooter. How did she get there? Is there a car available? Are there explosives? In other words, are there things beyond just the shooter? And that's what law enforcement is trying to assess now. Hopefully they know the answer to that. But once they get the scene cleared, And I think some of it must be clear because I see people walking away from YouTube headquarters. So that's foremost in law enforcement's mind as we speak.
Do you allow everyone to leave the vicinity? Because while we're hearing that it's a woman, that she was armed, it seems like someone could have gotten rid of their weapon, right? Maybe it wasn't just a woman. Maybe it wasn't a woman at all. And so it seems like they're kind of frisking these people and letting them leave. But is that the end of it?
Well, think about it this way, Lindsay. If the shooting occurred at one particular location, some reporting is it's an outside area where people eat lunch, but wherever it might be, this is a big campus, and so there's going to be other aspects of this campus. If the police feel that there is no connection and there's no safety issues, you are better off getting people away from these locations because you're trying to be safe as possible, of course, with people. So my guess is that's probably what's going on as far as people being moved.
And we understand also the local freeway right there, I think we see that 280 has been shut down. Now, what's the process? Is that just to limit traffic to the area at this point?
Well, it's two things. It's to limit traffic and to make sure if a shooter got away from the scene. I don't think that's the case, but it's another safety issue. But yes, you want to keep the congestion away from a potential scene for the obvious.
Clearly, this is not contained, or I imagine, you could be the best judge of this, once it is contained, do police let you know right away, hey, we have the shooter, we've confirmed it's just this one person? Or right now, could it be that they do have this person in custody and they still are just actively making sure that this was a lone shooter?
Right, until they actually know what they have. Lone shooter, have all the weapons, no explosives, in other words, no trail beyond just the shooter, then they'll probably make an announcement. My guess is you're not going to hear that from law enforcement for a little while.
And I believe that we have Rebecca Jarvis as well on the phone. Rebecca, thanks so much for joining us. And you've been talking to some YouTube employees, is that right?
Yes, that's right, Lindsay. A number of employees inside the building say they heard gunshots, they ran to safety, many of them barricaded themselves into offices and then waited. They say it was a terrifying experience waiting through post-gunshots, waiting for law enforcement. And they said that they could hear law enforcement going through the building, office by office, evacuating individuals. The people I've spoken to have been evacuated from the building, but they say that all of this started during the lunch hour as people were outside enjoying what is a beautiful day in San Bruno. And so many of these people would never have expected such a thing to happen at their company, and they're very shaken up by the whole thing, Lindsay.
And of course, the people that you talked to, you said, have all been evacuated safely. Did they describe that they believe that other employees are still inside?
They didn't say whether or not they believe there are other employees inside. They've made it to safety. Their understanding is that their coworkers and their cohort have made it to safety. But many of them have said they would never have imagined something like this happening, and especially on a day like today.
Did they describe at all for you the gunshots, if there were multiple rapid gunshots, or any extent of how much gunfire there was?
They described a handful of gunshots that happened in rapid succession, and then they were waiting, barricaded in that office, and they said that it was quiet, essentially, that they weren't hearing gunshots, but they could hear law enforcement minutes later going through the building. And
Rebecca, have you been to YouTube's campus before?
I haven't been at this campus. I've been at Google's headquarters, so they're a ways off in Mountain View from this campus in San Bruno. But it is the place where a number of YouTube workers spend their days helping to create the content and build out the platform that millions of Americans, billions of people around the world consume every day.
And Rebecca, any idea, it seems like it was just obviously within the recent weeks since Parkland happened, it seems like YouTube had announced perhaps that they were going to stop using advertisements with guns. Are you aware of any announcement? Can you kind of tell us about that?
So this announcement came a couple of weeks ago in response to Parkland, and they made the decision that they were no longer going to be using advertisements with guns. And this was partially because of the community at YouTube and at Google and what employees wanted. This is also because of outside viewers and stakeholders, and especially the young people from Parkland who were saying, this is wrong. We don't want to see this any longer. And in response to that, YouTube had made this decision. No sign at this moment in time whether there's any link there, but that's part of their history, and this happened only a handful of weeks ago now.
Rebecca Jarvis, thank you so much for reporting in for us on the phone. And Brad, just want to bring you in for one last question. So what can we expect? We believe that this happened around 12:52 Pacific time. In the next hours that unfold, what should we expect?
You should expect law enforcement, I suspect, in the next 90 minutes to maybe 2 hours to come out and give you the basics of what they have. They're probably not going to give you the name of a shooter, but they're going to give you the following: that it's, if it is a lone shooter, that they have X number of victims, that the shooter is either dead, wounded, or in custody, and that the YouTube headquarters is basically safe at this point. So I expect to hear that in a reasonable amount of time, but I'm going to guess it's going to take another hour or two before that actually occurs.
Okay, Brad Garrett joining us live from our D.C. Bureau. Thank you so much for that. Of course, you can expect to get the latest developments on this active shooter at YouTube's headquarters in San Bruno, California, online, abcnews.com, of course, on our news app, and later tonight on World News Tonight with David Muir. Thanks so much for watching. I'm Lindsay Davis.
Technically, somebody from the public could access.
Let me ask you, you said that your phone has been blowing up with text messages and inquiries from friends and family. What have you heard so far from the rest of your colleagues?
I haven't really talked, I've only talked to one colleague so far. I went live on Facebook because everybody's hungry for information on what's happening, and I've just been blowing up with requests from my family and my friends, trying to see if I've been all right. There was one person I believe worked in the facility who actually witnessed the shooting, and I actually have his interview on my phone.
Oh, I'll try and get that from you in a little bit. Unless you want to, would you like to pull that up now? Do you have a moment?
Okay, so a reporter from our affiliate KGO speaking with an eyewitness who explained what he heard, what he saw, and the circumstances of what may have gone on at the campus of YouTube in San Bruno, California. That is where police said they were responding to reports of an active shooter, and indeed a local hospital says they have treated between 4 or 5 victims. We're not sure, though, whether those injuries are gunshot wounds or whether they may have been sustained some other way. But now we are hearing from eyewitnesses that the gunshots were heard while a party on an outdoor patio at the YouTube headquarters had just been getting underway. So seemingly the gunman or the female shooter, as reports have indicated, may have already been inside the campus. In other words, didn't walk up to this party, but may have known about it in advance, may have understood what was happening, and for some reason that may have been a target. We'll wait to find out from San Bruno Police, as they continue to be the lead agency with backup from the ATF, the San Mateo County Sheriff's Department. FBI officials said they are on standby to respond if, in fact, that becomes necessary. A moment ago, the White House confirmed that President Trump has been briefed on the active shooter situation at YouTube headquarters. The White House is monitoring the situation, according to Press Secretary Sarah Sanders, and perhaps deploying federal resources as needed. The San Bruno police chief is getting ready to brief reporters. As soon as that briefing happens, we'll, of course, bring you the latest from the authorities about what has gone on at the campus of YouTube. The authorities have been telling us they responded to an active shooter, but they have not yet said the circumstances of that shooting, how many shots were fired, or how many victims they may well have been. We have heard from eyewitnesses that the shooter may well be contained, maybe down, but the authorities have not yet said. Let's hear some more eyewitness accounts from the scene, speaking to our affiliate KGO.
Do you work at YouTube? These are all YouTube?
Yeah.
Did you see what happened?
I didn't see, but I heard like running. I heard the shot. I didn't see
heard
it.
the shots?
Yeah.
Where did this happen? In the cafeteria area, from what we understand?
Yeah, that's what I heard, but I'm not fully sure. That's what I heard.
Okay, and you're being instructed to leave the premise?
Yeah.
Okay, and where do you plan on staging at this point?
Sorry?
Where do you plan on going from here?
So they're taking to a different building there, and then we'll probably leave.
A different YouTube building?
Yeah.
Got it. Thank you very much, sir. Okay, once again, we have dozens upon dozens of YouTube employees who are being instructed, at least from what I understand.
Okay, reporter at KGO speaking to an eyewitness who was there on scene at YouTube headquarters in San Bruno, California. That campus has been blocked off. The authorities have stopped traffic in surrounding streets, and they've urged the public to stay away as they investigate what they're calling an active shooter that they responded to now well over an hour ago. Steve Gomez, formerly of the FBI and now an ABC News contributor on law enforcement matters, is with us. Steve, as we learn a little bit more from eyewitnesses, multiple shots, possibly a female gunman, possibly an outdoor patio party that was targeted. What do you make of what we know so far?
Well, without any other information about statements made by the shooter or shooters and anything else, you tend to look at these set of facts and these circumstances as a workplace violence type of situation where the probability that there was an employee who was already in the building, the fact that there is a party, which means a large gathering, if somebody is going to want to commit a workplace violence, act, then they look for a place where they can find a large group of people, especially if there are more than one person who they are looking to harm, and they think they're all going to be at the party. So that's what this is leading towards. I mean, we're still going to, hoping that we're going to find out more as far as what was said and what were the actual movements of the shooter and or shooters. I mean, we still don't know if it's one shooter, more than one. Definitely sounds like there were multiple gunshots. There are definitely multiple injuries. And it still sounds like we had 200 officers that were described to us by a witness that went into the building, and we haven't heard anything about those officers coming out. So we don't know if there's still an area that they're trying to clear, trying to secure, and is there potentially a hostage situation? We still don't know anything about the shooter and or shooter. So still more to come, but it looks like this is leaning towards a workplace violence situation.
Too many questions and too few answers so far after what police called an active shooter at the campus of YouTube in San Bruno, California. The posture of the first responders in the last little while has certainly relaxed some, so perhaps they are close to having this contained, if not entirely wrapped up. And we just heard from the San Bruno Police Department that there would be a briefing with the chief coming up a short while from now. We'll, of course, bring that to you, but also it is an indication that they're comfortable enough to at least give some preliminary information as to what happened. Earlier today, YouTube employees were led out of their building where the apparent shots were fired. Their hands were in the air, and also they had been searched by the authorities as they came outside before being led fully away from campus. Police had locked off the streets surrounding the area and urged the public to stay away while they searched the building for the apparent shooter that was inside. Eyewitnesses said they heard multiple shots fired, perhaps as many as 15, according to one eyewitness, that appeared to all have occurred near an outdoor patio area where there had been some kind of lunchtime party underway. We had seen aerial images of that scene, the outdoor patio, where a number of chairs had been overturned and other items toppled, suggesting that something did happen to cause people who were sitting there at the time to flee rather quickly. An area hospital has told us that they are treating 4 or 5 victims from the shooting, but they did not make clear that those injuries were in fact gunshot wounds or whether there was some other kind of authority or of injury that was caused by people maybe running away. So we wait to see. We have just confirmed with law enforcement sources that the suspect in the YouTube shooting is female. The suspect in the YouTube shooting is female. It is not immediately clear, though, whether she is in custody, dead, alive, contained, not. The authorities just have not yet said. But clearly a lot of shaken nerves at YouTube headquarters where shots were fired, according to eyewitnesses, and police said they were responding to an active shooting and shut down the area in San Bruno, California, as they try to bring this to a close. John Cohen, another ABC News consultant, formerly at the Department of Homeland Security, that the gunman was female seems to be unusual in this kind of scenario, but not unheard of.
It's not unheard of, but it is, as you pointed out, unusual. The Secret Service, the United States Secret Service, just released a report last week, I believe, where they looked at 28 of the most recent active shooter situations, and they broke down the information regarding the suspects in those situations, and 100% of the suspects were male. So this would be somewhat of a departure from what we have been seeing lately. But again, it's not something that's completely unheard of.
John, as you have learned with us the scant information we have about what's gone on there in San Bruno, California at the YouTube headquarters, what do you make of this? Is this workplace violence? Is this something more?
Well, we don't know yet. The first thing that law enforcement is going to do in a situation like this is enter the location, locate the shooter or shooters, and stop them from shooting. Then the second step will be two things simultaneously: begin to clear the building to make sure there's no other shooters, and then begin treating the people who are injured. The next step in that is to try to put the pieces of the puzzle together to figure out what exactly happened. So we will learn more probably pretty quickly regarding what the motive was behind the attack, but it's too soon to tell at this point in time.
John, this is your area of study, these kinds of shootings, and there have been far too many of them in this country.
That's absolutely right, and in many respects, as we've talked about in the past, part of the problem is that we aren't refocusing our efforts from a prevention perspective to pick up on the people who are preparing to conduct these types of attacks and stop them from doing so. It means that people in the community need to think about this problem a little bit differently, but more importantly, law enforcement and mental health professionals need to begin thinking about this problem more or differently. As we have seen in past incidents, these shooters typically exhibit behaviors prior to the attack which cause concern amongst family members, co-workers, other students, if it's an academic environment. So we really need to change the way we work at the local level and the way local authorities work with federal authorities to do a better job at detecting and preventing these types of threats.
John Cohen, formerly of the Department of Homeland Security and now an ABC News contributor on these law enforcement matters. Local and federal authorities at the moment are focused squarely on San Bruno, California, and trying to determine what happened when a female gunman, we're told, walked into YouTube headquarters and opened fire. Eyewitnesses reported hearing some 15 shots. An area hospital said they treated 4 or 5 victims for as yet unconfirmed injuries. And we are awaiting a briefing from the San Bruno police chief. In the meantime, I want to turn to ABC's Alex Stone for what he knows in the very latest. Alex.
Well, and Erin, we're being told by police, and we will hear from the chief here in just a moment. We've been hearing a lot about this back patio, that there may have been an event going on, and that back patio, a number of the chairs have been overturned. There is what appears to be a yellow tarp. We don't know if there is a body underneath that tarp, but does appear that there was activity on that back patio. And as we have been watching things relax on scene, fewer of the employees have been coming out as well. Seems that many of the employees who were coming out one by one, getting searched, getting patted down, getting their backpacks looked through, that much of that has now calmed down as well. Police are walking around without the helmets on. One officer in that back patio area right now, where, by the way, there are yellow evidence markers that you would typically see if there were spent rounds, if there was some kind of evidence to mark off. There's one officer very casually right now walking through that area, no gun across his chest, no helmet on, that very clearly it seems the threat, at least outside of the building, has subsided. But we should hear more from the chief here in just a moment.
We'll look forward to that. ABC's Alex Stone following developments with us out of San Bruno, California, where a female shooter appears to have opened fire at the headquarters of YouTube. The campus has been shut down. Employees have been let out with their hands up and then searched as they were moved away from campus. As Alex notes, and right in line with what eyewitnesses have told us, that there was some kind of party going on around lunchtime at an outdoor patio where the tables and chairs have all been overturned and where this shooting may have started. It is not immediately clear the circumstances of the female shooter, whether she is dead, alive, captured, or not, but the posture of the authorities has certainly relaxed, and the police chief in San Bruno, California, is expected to soon brief reporters from the scene, and we'll await those details. The FBI has now responded to this scene, as has the ATF, joining San Bruno Police and the San Mateo, California Sheriff's Department as the main authorities on scene, along with California Highway Patrol.
I don't know the conditions of the people we expect. At 3:30 this afternoon, we're going to convene again. I'll bring a trauma surgeon from our trauma practice here to explain in greater depth what the injuries are and what the conditions of the patients are.
Okay, San Francisco General Hospital with a briefing now.
Brent Andrew.
Brent, I just got here. Can
Yeah,
you
no
please
worries.
recap?
Sure. First, we've received 3 patients, 2 females and a male. The females one is in serious condition, one's in fair condition. The male is in critical condition.
Okay, that's all I have.
Their ages one more time?
Females are 32 and 27. The male
One
is
serious 32?
Yes.
And one fair 27?
27, yes. And the critical male
critical
36.
36.
Brent, I'm going to take a picture of your page because I don't have a notebook.
Okay, so at San Francisco General Hospital, the report is 3 patients, 2 women, 32 and 27. The 32-year-old's in serious condition. The 27-year-old woman's in fair condition. There was also a male patient taken to San Francisco General Hospital, 36 years old, in critical condition, joining 4 or 5 other patients taken to a different hospital. So we have upwards of 8 victims total so far that we know of after gunfire at the headquarters of YouTube in San Bruno, California. Let's see if the San Francisco General Hospital spokesman gives us any more.
So the other trauma center nearby is at Stanford, and I know they've received patients also.
Do you know how many?
I don't.
Okay. Do you know how many total victims there are?
I do not.
Have any of these patients talked about what happened?
Not to me.
Not to you. So 3:30 we get more information.
Correct.
And until then,
Right, tell me your last name again.
thank you, sir.
Andrew.
All right, a spokesman from San Francisco General Hospital confirming 3 patients taken there, adding another 4 or 5 at a different level 1 trauma center in the area. So we have so far 8 victims after this shooting. Now, again, you heard the conditions, serious, fair, critical, but we did not hear the nature of the injury, so we don't know whether these people were shot, whether they were injured some other way after gunfire by a female gunman, we're told, at YouTube headquarters in San Bruno, California. I'm Erin Katersky. You're listening to live coverage from ABC News. The authorities in San Bruno are getting set for a news conference to deliver the latest details to us. It is a sign that at least they're comfortable enough moving away from the investigation to give us some information, so that may be a sign that things are starting to calm down, but nonetheless, no real confirmed information yet after a female gunman, we're told, opened fire at what may have been an outdoor patio party. Police and federal agents have all converged on YouTube's headquarters now in the San Francisco Bay Area, responding to what they called an active shooting in San Bruno. They did not immediately provide more information, but the city did say they took multiple 911 calls reporting gunfire, and that was certainly consistent with some of the eyewitness accounts that we had heard from the scene. The aerial pictures that we had seen, just a second, somebody is...
timeline of what we know now and where we're at this point. So if you'll bear with me, information is coming in. It's obviously a very fluid situation, and we're doing the best we can to keep everybody up to date. So at 12:46 p.m. this afternoon, San Bruno Police Department received numerous 911 calls regarding gunshots at the YouTube campus located on Cherry Avenue in our city. San Bruno Police arrived on scene at 12:48 and immediately began a search for a possible shooter or suspect. Upon arrival, officers encountered numerous employees fleeing from the building. It was very chaotic, as you can imagine. We did encounter one victim with an apparent gunshot wound towards the front of the business as we arrived. Several minutes later, while conducting a search of the premises, officers located a second individual with a gunshot wound that appears to may have been self-inflicted. We are still working on confirming that. 2 additional victims.
This is an ABC News special report.
And good afternoon, I'm Tom Yamas. We interrupt programming to bring you breaking news from out west, just outside of San Francisco, where there's been a shooting at YouTube headquarters. Police are calling this an active shooter situation. The FBI and the ATF are also on the scene. This is still very preliminary, but sources tell ABC News, and our station down there, KGO, is also reporting this. The shooter is believed to be a woman. San Bruno Police Chief Ed Barberini is about to start a news conference. Let's listen in.
Hi, my name is Ed Barberini. I am the police chief with the San Bruno Police Department. And what I'd like to do is just give you a quick briefing and a timeline of what we know now and where we're at this point. So if you'll bear with me, information is coming in. It's obviously a very fluid situation, and we're doing the best we can to keep everybody up to date. So at 12:46 p.m. this afternoon, San Bruno Police Department received numerous 911 calls regarding gunshots at the YouTube campus located on Cherry Avenue in our city. San Bruno Police arrived on scene at 12:48 and immediately began a search for a possible shooter or suspect. Upon arrival, officers encountered numerous employees fleeing from the building. It was very chaotic, as you can imagine. We did encounter one victim with an apparent gunshot wound towards the front of the business as we arrived. Several minutes later, while conducting a search of the premises, officers located a second individual with a gunshot wound that appears to may have been self-inflicted. We are still working on confirming that. 2 additional victims were located several minutes later at an adjacent business. The extent of all of the injuries of our victims are unknown right now. They were all transported for emergency medical care, but they are all unknown. So if I missed that, we have 4 victims who have all been transported for gunshot-related injuries, and we have 1 subject who's deceased inside the building with a self-inflicted wound that at this time we believe to be the shooter, but we're still following up on that. Multiple law enforcement agencies have responded to assist. We're very grateful for everyone's help and assistance. We could not have responded and accomplished this without everybody's help. This is an active event and an active investigation, and numerous law enforcement personnel from numerous different local agencies are still conducting a search of the business just to make sure that that it is clear. We conducted a quick, immediate search of the premises when the first officers arrived as pursuant to our active shooter protocol, and after that search was concluded, now we're going through with a methodical, slow search just to make sure that we cover all the bases. That's all I have for you at this time. We hope to have something a little later. I cannot give you the time of the next press update, but we'll put that out as soon as we have that information. I'm sorry? No, I cannot confirm that. It's a female. Yes. My understanding is that they've been transported and they're being treated for injuries that are treatable. We're hoping for the best, obviously.
Are there more people inside the building, or?
My understanding is the building has been evacuated. There are people in the immediate area. We're obviously trying to contact a large amount of people to try to identify and gain some information from witnesses at the scene. So you can imagine it's a monumental task with the number of employees that work inside the building.
Can you tell us about what weapon or weapons?
I'm sorry?
Can you tell us about what weapon or weapons were coming?
I don't have that information. I'm sorry.
Do you have police in San Bruno, the sheriff, who else is?
Well, we have. I haven't taken inventory of all the agencies here. There are numerous agencies. We work well with our neighboring partners, and we're grateful that they're here. But there's a lot of them.
And do you have a gender of the shooter?
Yeah, she. Well, I want to clarify that we did locate a victim with what we believe to be a self-inflicted gunshot wound. It's a female, but the investigation is still ongoing before we can put all the pieces together.
Is this person
it an ex-employee? I don't have any information regarding that.
Are you looking for another shooter?
We are clearing the building and searching the building in a slow, methodical manner like we would do anyway. So we haven't eliminated that possibility, but we have no information to suggest that there's somebody else in there that we're looking for.
Where are the employees now? We saw them walking down the street.
Yeah, a lot of employees self-evacuated, as you can imagine. We've identified a group that we want to talk to, and we have staging areas where our detectives are reaching out to them and interviewing them. So we're trying to do it as orderly as we can, but a lot of people, pretty hectic scenario. So it's a task.
What about how many people had to be evacuated?
That are there now besides the ones that you're identifying?
No, I believe my understanding is that the building has been evacuated, so they're all outside of that building.
Okay, how many people are you talking about here?
Several hundred, a few hundred. I'm sorry, a few hundred. It was my understanding.
In what floor was she?
I don't know.
And was her boyfriend there? That's what.
Oh, I have no idea. I don't know the circumstances surrounding this.
And it was
this
only
at
one
all.
shooter.
I don't want to eliminate any possibility. I don't know any of that for sure. Like I said, this is still active. We're still investigating this as I'm speaking to you. So there's a lot of things that I just simply don't know right now.
Is it shared that the shots started at the courtyard? Do you know anything?
I don't have that information. All right. I will try to get you an update as soon as we can once we know more. But I think that I've given you almost everything that we know at this point. So I appreciate it. Yeah, when we know, I don't want to give you a time because I may not have a lot for you. So when we can identify a time that's appropriate to come back and update you again, we'll do that immediately. We'll probably put that out through our media list and through social media.
Sorry, Chief. We understand from one employee that police had to borrow badges in order to access parts of the building. Did you have any trouble getting where you needed to go?
I don't have any information regarding that right now.
Is there a problem with security at YouTube? We've heard there's not even metal detectors now.
We're not even at that point yet. We're still trying to address the situation in front of us. Okay, I will get you some more information in a few minutes. I don't know. They've not been identified. So that's all I have. And again, I'll get back to you as soon as I can. Thank you.
And if you're just joining us, we've been listening to the Chief of Police of the San Bruno Police Department updating the news media on that shooting at YouTube headquarters in San Bruno. The biggest headline that came out of that news conference, the shooter who is now deceased is a female, which is very big news. I want to go to Pierre Thomas, our senior justice correspondent, who's been tracking the developments. And Pierre, the headline out of this, so far, one victim believed to be the shooter, dead with a self-inflicted gunshot wound, but that shooter is a woman, something we have not seen in a very long time, definitely not in the last year, at some of these major shootings across the country.
That's exactly right, Tom. Police saying that they encountered a very chaotic situation, did encounter a deceased woman on the floor at the YouTube headquarters, apparently from a self-inflicted gunshot wound. That's why they think that this person is the shooter. As you said, extremely rare to have a female shooter in these circumstances. Last year, the Secret Service did a study of roughly 28 such mass shooting incidents. All the perpetrators were male.
I also want to bring in now one of our analysts, a former FBI agent who studies mass shootings, Brad Garrett. Brad, you heard the news conference there. Break it down for us. We know that the shooter apparently is dead, a female. 3 to 4 other victims with gunshot wounds as well. This happened at 12:46 on the West Coast during the lunchtime. YouTube, a sprawling campus there in San Bruno, 1,700 employees, possibly targeting the lunch hour. What did you make from other things the police chief told us?
Well, that you have basically 4 people hospitalized and a dead shooter. So the real question, Tom, here is motive. Did the shooter go there to shoot a particular person during the lunch hour and then take their own lives and other people just happen to get shot? That remains to be seen. So, the real key is motive, and is there anybody else connected to her?
Now, Brad, the target here, or the place where this happened, YouTube headquarters, which is owned by Google, what does that mean? Could this have no connection whatsoever, or could it have a huge connection because of all the people that log on to YouTube every single day and or use Google?
This goes, Tom, from personal, I'm going there to shoot an individual, to I hate Google, I hate YouTube, I don't like something on YouTube. It's really hard to say at this point until we have more information. But, you sort of have to function in what do we know about this woman, and does she have connections, or has she sent out other people or other pieces of information that would suggest that this is bigger than just her?
A major revelation, no doubt, a female shooter at YouTube headquarters. who we now understand is dead. This is still an ongoing and active situation, so we will continue to monitor the story on abcnews.com, and we will have live team coverage on World News Tonight. We now return to our regularly scheduled programming.
This has been a special report from ABC News.
A lot of information that is placed on YouTube. Some of it could be controversial, and it could result in some type of animosity, friction. People could want to act out and target YouTube. So you would expect that this is a company that would have very, very solid security and security measures in place. Typically, when you have a company like that, that's very well known, has a lot of notoriety, there's always a lot of coordination that takes place ahead of time with law enforcement, with public safety agencies. In the event there is a situation, whether it's a threat targeting YouTube and its employees, or if there is an actual situation that we have here today. So those are some of the areas that will be examined, and we'll have to take a look at that in the investigation, and then, of course, any press announcements as far as the timing and the methodology for law enforcement as they made their approach and tried to get entry in there, and if that, cost them some time if they tried to make entry.
And John Cohen, the time is of the essence, right? Because most of the deaths and injuries, as you've been studying some of these mass shootings, happens in the first several minutes, right?
Yeah, that's right. And I mean, that's why we've seen a major change in the way that law enforcement thinks about responding to these types of incidents, where they will either send in specially trained law enforcement officers who've been trained in how to deal with trauma victims, or they'll team up with specially trained paramedics from the fire department or emergency medical services. But, it's a little odd to me because while private sector companies have done a lot to increase security around their locations and make access into buildings more difficult, there typically is coordination with local law enforcement in the event of a situation like this, so officers can very quickly get access to these buildings. So, as with these tragedies, there will be a lot of questions that will be asked and answered in after-action reviews to see if there have to be any changes in the way that the security personnel and law enforcement personnel prepared for this type of an event.
John Cohen, formerly of the Department of Homeland Security, one of our contributors here at ABC News on Law Enforcement Matters. All of these questions, as John and Steve both suggest, to come, but the authorities have not been able to answer any of the immediate questions about why this shooting happened. Was it a case of workplace violence? Was there a domestic situation that preceded it? Is it terrorism? The motivation of the female shooter was not made clear, but that female shooter is dead of an apparent self-inflicted gunshot wound, according to the San Bruno, California police, after shooting and injuring 4 people who were all taken to the hospital in varying conditions. We had heard from San Francisco General that a man, 36 years old, was in critical condition. 2 women who arrived at the hospital after the shooting, a 32-year-old and a 27-year-old, were in serious and fair condition. Another area hospital reported having 4 gunshot victims as well. So we are still waiting to clarify all of the numbers and whether any of these people self-reported, whether they had injuries other than gunshots, as police stay put under sunny skies in the afternoon there in San Bruno, California, the bucolic campus of YouTube, disturbed by gunfire that targeted apparently an outdoor patio where a number of people were gathered for a party. We don't know whether these gunshot victims were targeted or whether they just happened to be there when the female shooter arrived, but the eyewitnesses said there looked like there was some kind of party getting underway in this outdoor patio area when the shots rang out. How many shots, what type of weapon, police were not able to say, but they said they were on scene at YouTube headquarters 2 minutes after the initial calls came. Officers first noticed a couple of gunshot victims and then found the female shooter dead of a self-inflicted gunshot wound. In total, 4 victims were transported for gunshot-related injuries, all according to the San Bruno police chief who spoke just moments ago. ABC News consultant Steve Gomez still with us as we piece together what happened. We know the White House has been briefed. The FBI has been called in. The FBI had kind of stayed on the sidelines, but not long ago ended up going to the scene. That doesn't tell us anything in and of itself, but it does suggest that there may be more to this than less, if that makes any sense, Steve.
Yes, and because there are so many questions about what transpired and why, you want to keep all investigative options on the table. You don't want to rule out anything, whether it is a domestic dispute, workplace violence, terrorism, some kind of animosity towards YouTube, what have you. I mean, it could still be a number of different things until the investigation bears out the motive and the relationship that the shooter had with those specific individuals that were injured, or were they just randomly picked? Those are some of the questions that have to be answered. And you don't ever want to hone in on any particular path of the investigation. I mean, until you start to have facts and circumstances that take you to a path that you can prove, whether it's, something that's going to go to court. In this case, it looks like the shooter is dead, or you just want to be able to establish what truly happened for everybody involved. So that's something that the investigation will bear out.
And that is Steve Gomez, formerly of the FBI and now an ABC News consultant on law enforcement matters, after San Bruno's police chief, Ed Barberini, said that 4 people were shot and wounded, and a woman was dead of a self-inflicted gunshot wound inside the campus of YouTube in San Bruno, California. The building has been evacuated. He said there were a few hundred people inside. They are still investigating now the circumstances surrounding the shooting. So let's get to ABC's Alex Stone with the very latest. Alex.
Well, and that's a big question now, Erin. What led up to this? And police say they're telling us everything they know, that they don't know right now what led up to it. They have been so focused on trying to clear the building, trying to make sure that they have found everybody who could be a suspect and everybody who could be a victim to get out of there, that only now are they going to begin asking those questions. Early on, we had heard on police radios that they thought they had a shooter who was a female down with the weapon, who was with her. That appears to be we had been talking a while back about the tarp that looked like on the back patio, that they had a tarp with potentially a body underneath, that may be that area that police have been focused on. But they do believe right now that she was the only shooter, that it was this female. The weapon is next to her body, and they are working on that. Now, they're not ruling out that somebody else could have been involved, but they see no indication that there was somebody else involved. And, Erin, we always hear with any of these cases that there could be multiple gunmen, that people report seeing this, seeing that. We saw it in Vegas. They saw it all the way back to Columbine. But in this case, they say yet again, they got lots of reports of potentially multiple shooters, but they think it is only the one. A lot of times people see police responding in plain clothes and think that's another shooter. They see security. They see people who have their own weapons concealed that they pull out, and they get multiple reports. But they think that this is only one shooter, and they think at this point the shooter is down, but just to make sure, they are searching that building to be 100% certain that there isn't somebody else involved.
Alex, I know you saw some of the aerials of the outdoor patio where this appears to have been concentrated with the overturned chairs, a clear sign that people had scattered, and you mentioned the tarp covering the apparent body of the female shooter who was found dead of an apparent self-inflicted gunshot wound. Were you able to make out the weapon, long gun, short gun? I couldn't quite make it out.
No, hard to tell. And according to the police chief, he says he doesn't even know, as they've been put so much of the focus on clearing the building. Hard to tell there. It does look like that this happened on that back patio. Whether it was, and it would have been around the right time at 12:46, just lunch hour, and people were out there outside of a cafeteria and eating, or if there was, in fact, as some witnesses have said, maybe a party that was going on out there. But there are a lot of yellow evidence markers all around. The police have already laid there, likely bullet casings, maybe drops of blood, that sort of thing. And then what we believe to be the suspect's body protected by police and with a tarp over it, just inside of a walkway that looks like she had either just come out of the building or was just going to go into that building. But does look like many people would have at their workplace, an outdoor area. It's got canopies set up. It's got umbrellas for folks to eat under. A sunny day, beautiful day in the San Francisco Bay Area, the Silicon Valley, when the shooting happened right at during the noon hour as folks were outside.
ABC's Alex Stone following developments at YouTube headquarters today. It was, as he said, during the lunch hour when a female shooter opened fire, shooting and wounding several employees at YouTube headquarters. 4 of them have been transported with gunshot wounds. San Francisco General Hospital said at least one of them is in critical condition, a 36-year-old male. 2 women received there are in serious and fair condition. Another couple of those victims may have gone to a different hospital as well, still sorting out some of the different injuries and conditions. A moment ago, President Trump on Twitter said that he was just briefed on the shooting at YouTube's headquarters in California. He said, "Our thoughts and prayers are with everybody involved," and he thanked the law enforcement officers and first responders that are on scene and remain on scene to try and understand what exactly has happened. Let's get a quick thought from Steve Gomez, formerly of the FBI and now an ABC News consultant, as they dig into what happened here, Steve. We'll get to Steve in a second. John Cohen, formerly of the Department of Homeland Security, on where this investigation goes. John.
Well, I mean, all I would say in closing is that we're just several weeks away from the Parkland shooting. And once again, we are on air discussing the fact that a armed individual walked into a location and shot or took actions that resulted in the injuries of multiple people. This is the primary concern of law enforcement today across the country, which is the increase of these types of mass casualty attacks or active shooter situations, which seemingly are having to be dealt with every several weeks.
John Cohen, formerly of the Department of Homeland Security at YouTube headquarters. 4 were shot and wounded. A female shooter is dead of an apparent self-inflicted gunshot wound, according to the police in San Bruno, California. For my colleagues, I'm Erin Katersky. You've been listening to live coverage from ABC News.